Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Agahi. Throughout this pandemic, parenting hasn't been an easy process for anyone. Children have been extremely uncomfortable and anxious throughout this lockdown. Parents are really going through a difficult period in managing household chores, children's homeschooling, as well as going to work. Especially for frontline workers, it's nothing more than a challenge in itself. To talk about what struggles parents go through, how difficult parenting is during lockdown, and how parents are coping with home, schooling, and work life at home with their children, we are going to discuss things further. This is a live call in show, so I will encourage viewers to call in if they have any questions to ask our expert. Today, we have Sister Kathleen Nagi, who appeared on our show once before, and today she will continue with certain things that we were unable to finish in our last episode. So I'll introduce Sister Kathleen, who has been working in the field of mental health for the past 20 years as a counselor, life coach, midwife, teacher, and an SRN nurse. She enables parents by raising their level of confidence, their self esteem, so they can be the best parents possible. Sister Kathleen, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you for having me on the show. It is wonderful being with you again. I don't know if I would call myself an expert because I think when it comes to parenting, we're all learning, and it's a job that we have to learn on the job, and we never know what's going to face us indeed, what challenges we have. So I think we're all learning there together. So I wouldn't class myself as an expert.
Okay, I won't call you an expert then. But still, mashallah, you have tremendous amount of experience. You've been providing trainings and workshops and coaching classes to parents who are struggling, new mothers, children, expectant mothers. Mashallah, you have a lot of experience to share with our viewers today. And I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing difficulty in this moment in time. So we'll start the program, inshallah. And just to get in, the first thing I would like you to talk about is the 5 pillars of parenting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jazakallah Khair, for having me on. We have 5 pillars that underpin our parenting, because parenting is such a wonderful reward in itself. And often our parents forget about this. They forget about the reward they're having for their parenting from our faith. We understand and we know that we are challenged with a lot of things, but we forget that we are going to be rewarded once we have intentions for that. And in our Quran also, the amount of Quranic ayahs that gives respect to parents. And examples are there from our Quran and from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, so that we can learn and be the best parents possible. So we have taken some of those concepts to help us to give them to our parents so that they can understand them in a practical way. So what we do is practical skills, parenting courses, and you're right, we've done a lot of them. So in the last 3 months, just before Christmas, we actually reached over 1,000 parents, which was amazing.
Mashallah.
Mashallah. And our target in this 3 months, January, February, and March, is double that. And we're on track for that. So our team has expanded a lot and working very, very hard. And I'll be able to reflect on some of the issues, of course, that our parents are telling us over that time. But understanding for our parents just to think about first that the reward that they can get for raising children, the benefits for now in this world and in the hereafter is wonderful for raising righteous children, and that heaven being under the feet of mothers. And this is something that I want parents to really think of before I just explain the pillars to them, that we in Islam have so much concepts there, adab, raising your children with good manners, good behavior, good conduct, good character, ikhlaq, and we're going to come back to characters, one of our first pillars again, and in the interaction, how we want to raise them as with good characters. Patience, to have that tawbah, that patience, that respect for others. Thankfulness, what we call thankfulness, we call praise, and we actually teach our parents how to praise and the different types of praise. And thankfulness is mentioned so much in the Quran. And the shura concept of bringing into our families. And these are just some examples of our faith, that shura concept, that shura, where we all sitting down together around the table, having family meetings together. This is something going back to our slam. This is not something new that we've had in modern psychology. This is in our slam. So if you even think of King Arthur and the Round Table, this was even before then that our Islamic
Definitely,
concept.
yeah.
So all of this underpin how we should be interacting and dealing with our children and raising them the best we can. So our pillars, we have 5 pillars. So we have character, knowledge and skills, action, steadfast, and positive relationships. And I'll explain them a little bit more. And if we run out of time, just warn me if we're coming up to Salat time, please. So character, building that character, that love, that mercy, that compassion, that patience, that is so important indeed for us to do for our children. We want to build good character. How can we build good character if we are not role modeling that good character ourselves? And we
True.
know and we understand during lockdown, things are very tense at the moment. Parents are
Yes.
really stretched, really stretched, and they're doing
Yeah.
home learning and working and trying to do so many things. But I would remind parents to please keep in check how they communicate and how they express their, not just the words they say, but their body language. And I'll talk a bit more about that later on. But I'm finding, and we're finding, and counselors and other people and other therapists, that I'm finding that parents are, yes, very stressed and very anxious, and sometimes they say things that they are not aware of. And of course, this doesn't come out right. And they come, maybe they're a little bit aggressive in what they're saying, or a little bit impatient in what they're saying. But that doesn't help in building the character we want in our children of love, mercy, and patience. And we need to be, as parents, compassionate and be in control of our emotions so that we are able to have our children in control of their emotions as well. So that's so important in that first character building pillar that we're talking about. And if
Yeah.
we do that as parents, and if we're confident as parents and considerate, our children will grow in confidence and be considerate also. So
Definitely.
all of those
Definitely.
values we want in our children, we need to start looking at ourselves first. And this is why it's parenting. It's
Yeah.
called parenting rather than anything else. So that's the first pillar that is really important. The second pillar then is the knowledge. So giving parents knowledge and skills, so appropriate knowledge and skills for the age development, the age of their child, or the developmental age of their child. So we have divided that down into different stages. So we have our 0 to 3 programs where we have our antenatal and postnatal. Then we have our school
Yeah.
going age from 4 to 11. And then we have our
Okay.
teenage programs, all of which are underpinned
Right.
with different theories, but all of them
Mm.
have Islamic elements linked to them. So if I could say that attachment theory is in the first phase, which is really very important to get that attachment right, which can underpin how those young children we're talking about, how they behave and react when they go to school or when they become adults. Even
Yeah.
what friends do they choose? It all underpins, as you know, from
Yes.
this pure attachment. So important. So this is why we get parents to think of what they're learning and internalize it and think about it and make the intention to be better with the knowledge and skills that we give them over the different courses. And we can talk about more about the different courses a bit later on. So the third pillar is action. Patience, changes. This is what we want. We want to have some sort of action, some sort of change in your family. With that
Yeah.
is the intention first. And then when we have the intention and do things, we know it becomes a habit. And when things become a habit, then it becomes normal in that life, in that family, it normalizes, and then parents can focus on something else to change, to make those changes. So change one thing at a time. Steadfastness is
Right.
the fourth pillar because we want parents to be steadfast. We know that when you're striving to make change, that often children realize this and pull you back and want to go back to the old ways again because they used to get away with things maybe in the old way. So we want you to be steadfast, to be committed, to be firm, to strive to and have this commitment, and to a spouse and yourself and your spouse to work together, or your extended family to work together to make this commitment and make this change, to have the last pillar, the positive relationships, the positive families, the love, the respect, the trust that we want in all families indeed. So that's so
Yeah.
important for us to have that in all families. So
Wow,
that's,
that's a lot
yeah,
of things to ponder upon. And you mentioned something about patience, and I can see a lot of parents, especially mothers, they are feeling so overwhelmed with all the responsibilities of homeschooling and also managing work from home. It can get pretty overwhelming. And patience is something that's difficult to practice under the circumstances. What
it is
advice would you give to mothers?
very good. And I was just thinking about this actually before I came on the air about how best to describe this. And I think one of my best ways is to think that be taqwa, God consciousness, being
Yeah,
aware that Allah is watching you all of the time. And if you knew Allah was
yes,
watching you, would you say that? Would you do that? Would
exactly.
you react in that
Yeah,
way? So
yeah,
if we know, if we were going to meet the Queen, we would be on our best behavior, make sure we are dressed well, make sure we're smiling, make sure we are pleasant character. This is what we should be doing all of the time, because we are raising our children, and it is a task that we're given. It's a privilege. How many parents or how many people out there don't have children and would give anything to have children? So what a privilege, what a
yeah.
reward for you to have this beautiful gift to raise and put into your charge. And patience is something that we need. Yes, we understand there's a lot happening at the moment. It's
Yes,
very difficult for parents, and probably
yes,
not taking everything on board. You're not qualified as a teacher, so you don't have to be there doing that super teaching, and make sure that they get 100% in everything and
yes.
photograph everything and send it to school immediately. So long as we're doing our best, and so long as our children
Hmm.
come out of this pandemic emotionally not just aware of themselves, but emotionally confident, have their good
Yes.
emotional skills, emotionally competent, really is what I want to say, competent, that they will catch
Mm.
up on their academia. We need to have those children coming out of this emotionally well and look after their well-being during this. So that comes as a priority over everything else, I would say. The academia, yes, it would be good if we could have structure, we could have some timetables in the house, we could have maybe look at when it is best to do this subject. Is it a good time in the morning when the children are fresh to do a little bit of a subject? What fun elements do we have in there? What breaks are we putting in there into the day, so that we're breaking it down for the children and we're having some fun together and laughter together? All of this is so
Yeah.
important in trying to cope with the situation ourselves, and not to take on so much. I think a lot of parents on this time are trying to take on so much and be everything to everybody, and that is so difficult. We cannot actually do that. We cannot do everything perfect
Of
in this
course.
time. We especially in this time, and we must also
We'll
seek help.
continue, Sister Kathleen. We'll just take a short break to do Salah for Zuhur, and then inshallah after Azan Zuhur we'll come back. Stay tuned, viewers, and if you have any questions to ask Sister Kathleen, we'll expect your call soon. Salamu alaikum. Salamu alaikum. Welcome back. Before going on the break, we were discussing 5 pillars of parenting with Kathleen. Assalamu alaikum, Kathleen. Welcome back.
Alaikum salam rahmatullah. Thank you for having me back.
So you were talking about the 5 pillars of parenting. If you could please continue.
Yes, so I was talking about the importance of the 5 pillars in what we have in our parenting courses to help parents learn and understand and those practical skills that we need to parent our children. And we have a very famous Islamic saying, 777, that often our parents will use and understand. And it's great that our Islam has so much knowledge and structure to how we parent. So it's 777, in that we know to 7, 7 to 14, and 14 plus. And it breaks it down that play with them for 7, teach them for 7, and be friends with them for 7. And that doesn't mean that our teenagers, we don't play with them. No, we definitely need to play with them, or we don't teach our 4-year-old. No, it's so important to teach our 4-year-old. But what our Islam is telling us, the importance of these concepts. So to play, and we know now, and a lot of countries practice this, that young children don't go to official schooling or don't join schools until they're 7 years old. So they play a lot before that. They learn through play. So that is what our Islam is telling us, the importance of building that relationship and having fun with your children, because all of us will learn when we have fun. That's if we enjoy something, we're actually we learn better. So that's so important to play with our children for the first 7 years. Then to teach them. Then there's more. The children themselves will start asking questions. Why is this? Why does this? So they, mashallah, they are full of wonder and want to absorb that knowledge. So they ask so many questions. And this is the time where teaching comes in. So from the second 7. And then it emphasized the importance of friendship, which often in our teenage years, our parents forget about. And we need to build up to that, because when we are dealing with our teenagers, we need to deal with them more as if they are our friend. Yes, you're always going to be a parent. Yes, you're there responsible for them. You're in that role no matter what age they are. But you treat them differently. You take on board their suggestions. It may not be that you go with their suggestions, but you take on board their suggestions and you ask for their suggestions and you validate their suggestions so that they can feel proud of themselves and able to think of how to do things better for themselves. Because what we want is good, healthy, emotional children that actually can go into the world and can fend for themselves. Because we only Definitely. We're only like caretakers, really, when it comes to parenting. We are preparing them for their world. And I think I mentioned the last time on the show with you the importance of raising your children for their time, not for our time. And we forget about that. We forget about the difference now. If I only look at the last 20 years, the internet has taken over. Our children know more about the internet and different apps and concepts than we do. And I know my youngest actually taught me how to use Twitter. When I wanted to go on Twitter, going back a few years ago, I said to my other children, can you teach me how to go on Twitter? And they said, we don't know. Even they didn't know. And there's only a few years difference. They said, go and ask my youngest son. And he taught me how to use Twitter. So subhanAllah, they know so much techniques and concepts, and we can learn from them. It's a two-way process. We should always be learning. So
and we see this from the lives. We see this from the lives of the Prophet and his holy household, that there was interaction between the father and the children. For example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his daughter Fatima, discussing serious matters, taking into consideration each other's opinions. It wasn't just dictatorship or anything. It was more about taking into consideration what other person feels, what other person thinks about the situation.
So true, mashallah, and it's so true. And if you look back at the Prophet Islam as well, and how he used to play with children and play with his wives, mashallah, and his grandchildren, we've lots of examples there of the importance of play, and through that you will get closer to your children so that they will feel confident to give their suggestions. And then you can
Yeah.
actually, yes, as you already mentioned, take on board their suggestions and encourage them to be thinking. And we're not always going to be there with our children. I'm sure your listeners here today understand that. Yes, and now we're at home. We have actually this
Mm.
opportunity to be able to understand their opinions and get closer to them, so that when we
Yes.
come out of lockdown and they're possibly a year older than they were, that they will be able to do more things, and that you are confident in allowing them to do more things. So you may talk
Yeah.
about now processes of how you're going to do that. So for example, your child may be taking a bus to school or taking a train to school, and where they were in primary school last year and now they are in secondary school, or vice
Yeah.
versa, they're moving into secondary school next year,
Hmm.
and you're a bit worried about this, you will, I'm sure, undergo through that journey with them first, especially if they take a train, and it would be a good
Yeah.
idea to take that journey with them first to understand it, but also to talk to them about how are they going to make that journey? What would they do if the train didn't come? If the school was closed down because of snow? If they lost their train ticket? All of these little things that we can actually explore so that they can have a
Yeah.
plan in their mind, and then
Definitely.
when
Yeah.
the situation come, if it hopefully won't come, but if a situation or a similar situation come, at least they have a plan in place that they can reflect back to. Because
Hmm.
like myself, when we're in shock, when something happens,
Yeah.
our brain shuts down and we can't think
Definitely. Yeah.
correctly, we can't
Yeah.
think straight. So using this time as a game, even, to make it in a fun
Like a
way,
role
as
playing.
yes, a role play of exactly. And you could be
Yeah.
the child losing your ticket, and you could be going to them, oh, what should I do? Well, give me advice, to what would you do? Or even if you want to take it, as we often say, one step removed, to not to put it on them directly. It could be your friend. This is your friend. He's going to school or she's going to school, and this happened to them. What would you do? What would your suggestions would you give to your friend? You're getting them to think and to put something into place, and then you can modify those suggestions. You can ask questions. Well, what do you think about this? Or what do you
Hmm.
think about this concept? So getting them to think broader, so that they can have
And
plans in
I
place.
I think this will be a fantastic way of dealing with certain anxieties and stresses that children may have, because they may be able to overcome their fears by talking about it, by finding out possible solutions and way out.
You mentioned it so well. So well done. Talking, communicating, listening is just so important, underpinning everything, I think, and underpinning the issues that's happening at the moment and the misunderstandings that's happening. And which all goes back to communication. And I love the way you brought that back to communication, because communication is so important. It's such a key of how we interact with our spouses, with our relatives, with our children, and how they interact with us. And if we
Yeah.
are thinking before we speak, because we often say we have one mouth, we've got two ears, so we think, we listen more and we think before we speak, and try and frame it in a positive way. And not we don't always have to be there with our children giving the answers. And I think sometimes, especially in lockdown, our parents feel, oh, I need to have the answer for everything. But if they can think, you don't need to have the answer, you can just ask a question, or change it a little bit and say, how would you do that? And if they do ask questions, that's a really good question. Even giving
Yeah.
feedback like that to our children helps them to have confidence and think about the response. And then go back, if we're looking at communication, go back again to Prophet Muhammad Islam, and we spoke about this before, about how he communicated, how he was always there listening and having patience and absorbing everything that people said, and gave quality to the remarks that people were saying, and was present and was fully present and aware in what they were
Yeah.
saying, and how this is so important to be there. And we know when he communicated with others, he looked at them face on, so they saw his full face, And we know body language is really important for this. And when he smiled, you could see his back teeth. So he was really giving that smile, that lovely smile. So he never turned his face like, as if he would a side glance denoting pride or something like this. No, never like this. And this is what we need to be like. We need to be following the same characteristics like this as Prophet Muhammad in understanding and looking at our children. And actually, it's funny, but psychologists today have broken that down and have put that into a model. And there's a communication model of how we communicate, and they've brought it down to 3 parts. So they've said words that we speak is one part, our tone
Yeah.
of voice is another part, and our body language is another part. And
Which is
really,
the major one.
it is a major one. And when we talk about this in our parenting with our parents, and we give them the percentages, so we say there's a 7%, there's a 55%, and there's a 38%. That's how they broke it down. What do you think which
Yes.
one stands for? And of course, because you just mentioned the body language is that 55%, which most of our parents think is the words. And we have
Yes.
to tell them that it's not. It is actually the body language and how you're looking and how you're expressing your face and your eye movements and your hand movements. I know I'm talking a lot with my hands. I should keep them down, but that's part of me. That's how I do talk. With all of
I'm the
this,
same.
all of this, it communicates what the messages that we're trying to get across. And our parents need to be aware of that, because even subconsciously, if we are
Yeah.
thinking of something subconsciously, it comes out in our body language. So we need to be aware of our body language and have, like yourself here as a presenter, lovely open body language, smiling, welcoming our children, uh, 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 hugging them, picking up on their good things that they're doing, as we say, the thankfulness, which I can talk more about. But that's really important in the communication. The words are only 7%. The tone of voice is 38%. And parents sometimes don't know what is tone of voice. So I often describe it as, if I spoke to you in this tone of voice for the whole session that we are going to be doing here live at the moment, would you like me to continue talking like this? And of course, then they understand that no, this doesn't make sense. Now. We emphasize the words, we put strong emphasis on the words, the messages we want to get across. And that's so important for us
Yeah.
to have that tone of voice to get across the right messages. And parents
And
often,
children
sorry.
children tend to mimic their parents when they're younger. Like you see young girls wearing their mother's shoes or young boys trying to dress up like their fathers. So when it comes to attitude, behavior, tone of voice, and body language, is this something that children tend to copy as well from their parents?
Definitely, even from a baby, this age, they say babies in their arms pick up the facial expression more so of the mum, because its mum is more interacting with them, even from a very
Subhanallah.
young age. Subhanallah. And even there is some tests and experiments that has happened that a baby at 10 minutes old, 10 minutes old, and I've tested this out on my
Wow.
grandchild actually as well. 10 minutes old, if you stick out your tongue, the baby will stick out their tongue as well, because for a short period of time they can see what's happening there and mimic what's happening. So they follow everything, subhanallah, of what's going on and how you're interacting. And if you can bear with me, I can do a little exercise to show the importance of body language so our listeners can interact with this. So
Oh,
I
yes.
often like this. Thank you. So we have like the old compass here, the bit that sticks into the paper, and your compass like this. So if you draw a full circle like this, point out the finger and draw a full circle like this. Okay, everybody, you're doing this. And now take your finger to your chin.
I'll do
Okay.
that.
Yes, but I said, what did I say? I said take it to your chin.
Oh my goodness! I didn't even realize that. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So
Subhanallah.
that's just an example of we follow the body language. We don't always hear the words, but we follow what the person is saying. So, as a little example there of what you were asking, yes, The children do, of course, pick up that from the very, very beginning, and a lot of the characteristics of parents from the beginning. And this is why we need to be mindful. We need to have that taqwa, to be God conscious of everything we're doing, so that we can express communication from the very beginning right to them. And even in the very early stage, we talk about a lot in our early programs about the importance of bonding, attachment, and attunement.
Hmm.
So the bonding is having that relationship with your child, that love, warm feeling, that bond. And then that attachment, we're talking about secure attachment here. So ensuring that our children feel safe and secure, which is really important, because from day one they have an impact on everything that they're doing, because we know we respond to their cries, and when they cry they respond. So actually they understand very early on that they have an impact on the world and how to get your attention, and their
I
attunement,
have
therefore. Sorry, I was just going to say
Sir, I
about
have a
attunement.
question for you.
Okay,
One of our viewers have sent a question for you. They're saying that during this period, there's a lot of tension in the family. Um, how can we manage difficult behavior and conflict?
yes. So difficult behavior and conflict, there's lots of ways we can manage it, but first I would go back and look at our communication again. What's happening there with our communication? How are we responding to that communication? How are we communicating with the child? And especially, and I don't know the age of the children that your listener has asked about, but especially in the teenage years, the teenagers, we need to understand, have been used to a certain amount of freedom, and now here they are at home, not able to go out, not able to meet their friends, not able to express maybe what's going on for them to their parents if there's issues going on at home, or to their friends. They may not have devices to be able to talk to their friends, so they're feeling very shut off. And then at the same time, they're worried about school, they're worried about their education, they're worried about their exams, what's going on for them. Will they be able to do their exams? Will they get the results that they need? Will they be able to go to the careers that they want? So there's a lot happening there for them in at home. So this conflict can start, and we need to be mindful and break that down a bit into that what's going on for them and how we can monitor that conflict. So looking at the situation, so always the best thing is to be proactive rather than reactive. So to step in
Right.
first, and I'm often talking about this, when you see things a bit hard for children, when you see maybe they're going through their own tensions and stress and their anxieties, and find out what's happening for them, what's going on for them, because it could be that their best friend that they are talking to, they've had an argument with the best friend, and that's why it's coming out and coming out at home. It could be that, and we know it in this lockdown, that a lot of children are suffering from anxieties and are are thinking of other negative thoughts and negative concepts to overcome this, which we don't want them going down that road. And this is why it's so important for the parents to understand that, and to be able to think about how we prevent that conflict from happening. So what's going on in the house? How am I listening? How is my child listening and understanding them? Am I listening and understanding to them? How can I prevent things from escalating? How can I nip things before they escalate? How can I
Yeah.
express to them, I hear what you're saying, even though you may not agree with what they're saying, but you're hearing what they're saying and acknowledging that. And how then
Right.
we can make a solution together in moving forward, so that we're preventing that head-on conflict that we're doing. And sometimes people respond in different ways, so we know there's different personality types, and it could be that head-on confrontational arguments, shouting, banging doors, would be a little bit more of the passive aggressive, where they're not able to
Yes.
express themselves, but they leave the room and bang doors. But it
Yeah.
depends on how that child really express themselves, and their character in doing this. But prevention is better than cure. sitting down together,
Definitely.
having some fun together in the family, and looking at where is those conflict, why is this conflict happening, what are the triggers. So going back, looking at the triggers to the different situations, and being able to dealing with those triggers, and looking at yourself as well as a parent. You know, parents are not always right, and we need to take that on board. We make mistakes as well as our children, and are we able to say that to our children? Are we able to apologize to our children? Are we able um, to be there and understand them, and really, you know, think of what it is they're trying to say, how they're trying to express themselves, and how they're trying to express what's going on for them. And it could be that, just that in some situations, it could be that the young person is hungry, is tired as well, because
Yeah.
they're not sleeping well. Maybe they are worried about things, as I said, mentioned, and up in the nighttime, and tired over that. And maybe they need to practice a little bit of mindfulness and relaxation techniques as well. And parents can help them to do this, indeed, to think about even taking some deep breaths, even the simple act
Hmm.
of breathing in, holding it, and breathing out. Simple for 4. Breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, and breathe out for 4. Can really help the parent and the child to be able
Yeah.
to express themselves more, and not to have those conflicts, and to then think of solutions. So we're thinking of, when we break down a problem, what I often do is look at the problem, the positives and negatives of the ways out, or the techniques out now, for immediately, and in the wider context. So we look at the immediate and also broader. So we're breaking that down to see of solutions that we can have now and in the broader. And if we explore that and then put them into positive and negative concepts, so we can break it down even further into what is positive and what is negative, and then look at that and see what can we do positively now that we can have an impact on us now, not just now in the present, but also
Yeah.
in the whole broader concept of trying to find a solution to the problem. Of course, it's hard to answer each situation. We need to know an example of the situation, how we could work through that. If the parent that has asked this, if they want to contact us for further help, of course, they're welcome to contact us. And there's lots of organizations that can help as well, indeed. And we should always try and seek help. This is what our Islamic
Another
faith.
thing I wanted to ask you is, a lot of parents are finding it really difficult to set a routine for their children, like a bedtime routine, a meal routine, and also to reduce the screen time, because children can't go out and play right now. I mean, in most parts of the country, it's snowing, it's really cold. So it's becoming more and more difficult.
It is becoming more difficult indeed, and this is why parents need to be kind of creative in their way. So there's another skill, parents, that you're learning during this time, and be practical. So yes, screen time can be an issue, indeed, and we don't want to use screens as babysitting tools. We understand it can, and in this period of time you might have to use it at times, but you need to be aware of how much and how long are you allowing your child, and whatever it depends what age they are as well, to be in front of a screen. We have found sometimes that babies are put in front of a screen. Now, babies don't need to be put in front of a screen to have images that, these cartoons, they flick very quickly. If you ever look at a cartoon image, how many times the scene changes, even in a second, it's continuously changing. So it's continuously helping, having the baby's mind going. And this is not something that we recommend for babies. Babies could be put under, these little gyms and things like this, that they can
Yeah.
pull and reach, and that you can help them to actually develop their skills, develop their fine motor skills by doing fine things, or pulling on things to develop their muscles, or their greater skills as well there. That all helps children indeed, and there's different color there you can have to have children play with different colors. So depending on the age of the child, it's important that we look at screen time and how we can minimize that. Now, we do know that screens are needed, especially now for homework. So a lot of children are
Yeah.
on the screen all are doing their homework. I believe the advice coming out from opticians is that you should actually look away from the screen every 20 minutes. So look away to help your eyesight go back to focus to the longitudinal way. And I don't know
Yeah.
the medical terminology for this, but I've been told that this really helps your eyesight and helps your lenses in your eyes. So to do that every 20 minutes. Also to break down, I would break down for parents in what work they have to do and how much screen time they need in that work. Not everything has to be done on screen. We have lots of boxes now, I think, in our homes because parents are ordering things online and things are coming. So you can use
Yeah.
these boxes to be creative, to make things. So you don't need to draw a picture on the screen in an art form. You can take out the pens and papers, be with them, give them coloring, help them build things. I remember when we went through Ramadan in the first lockdown, we actually
We caller online. We'll take the call.
okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm watching your program and it's really, really interesting. I'm from Manchester.
Okay, welcome to the show, sister.
And it's really, really interesting because from an educator's point of view, I deal with this every day. And it's one of those things that you've given me a voice to pass my message on as well. And I would just like to say, from my role as a teacher, I just think that what
Sorry, I can't hear the question. Apologies, I can't hear the question. May I just continue with some techniques of establishing good connections? We were talking about setting boundaries, keeping people safe in their boundaries, understanding.
like everything that you have is going to need maybe with them.
Thank you. Thank you for your call. Thank you so much for your input.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, we had technical difficulty there. So this caller, she was talking about her experience that as a teacher, it's quite challenging as well, especially when you're online waiting for the child and you only find out that the child hasn't woken up yet or the child is still in bed instead of being in the class. So it's not easy for parents, it's not easy for teachers, but we have to support each other, we have to cooperate with each other to help children get into routine. So, Kathleen, we only have 4 minutes left. If you could please talk about parenting pledge, something that you often talk about in your trainings.
I will indeed. And just before I talk about the pledge, and I have the pledge here for you to see as well. It's so important to get into a routine, and both the parents and children really want the same objective for the child, a positive child at the end of all of this. So we're all working together in this, indeed, and hopefully if we come together with this pledge and we talk about the pledge and we can all repeat the pledge together, that maybe inshallah Allah will help us to be better parents in the end of the pledge, indeed. So the pledge starts with, I pledge that I will be God conscious and aware of my thoughts. I will smile more and be thankful I have children. I will spend more quality time with my children. I will always use positive discipline techniques, and I will make every effort to gain rewards for my parenting. So very simple 5 points there for us. being aware, being God conscious of what we're doing every moment of the day, and thinking and planning ahead, like what this teacher said, plan ahead, try and get your children up early, trying to have them online on time, dress them into their uniform so they're in the frame of mind that it's a school day, I need to work. So little things like this can help. So being aware and being conscious of our own thoughts, indeed, and what we need to do to our children. Smile, because we know it's a charity and it releases endorphins when we smile. And like you're smiling back at me, it's such a charity, because when we smile at somebody, they smile back and we've been rewarded for that. We're actually releasing endorphins in the other person. Spend more quality time. It is the quality time. It is not the quantity. Quality time. Play and make sure you have that quality time to get to know your children better during this lockdown. Always use positive discipline techniques. We don't want any smacking, hitting, or aggressive language. Positive discipline techniques indeed is in there. And if you find that hard, please contact us and we will help you with that. And then make every effort to gain rewards from your parenting. Inshallah, that's what we're all trying to do. Gain rewards, inshallah, that Allah will look at us and reward us for every little thing that we're doing. And even if we've the intention to do something and we don't get to do it, Allah will reward us for that good intention, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Jazakumullah khairan, Sister Kathleen, for all the valuable information you have shared with us today. Inshallah, all the viewers who are watching, if you need any support, any training, any advice, Approachable Parenting is one of the organizations in UK that are actively supporting parents in parenting. Thank you for joining us today. Inshallah, we'll see you next Saturday with another fantastic guest. Take care of your mental health. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.